TikTok, it's time to rock. It is the Sunday show. My name is Andrew. I'm all the way from Hamilton, New Zealand. On the top tier, we have the rock professor somewhere in England. And down below, holding us up with the guns as usual, we're his burden. We're his burden on his back. Brad, the backdoor man cook. He's got some information to share with us, ladies and gentlemen. We look forward to that. We've got some cool pics to flick through. And before we do that, though, we always want to do a special shout out. I don't think I got to do this yesterday when we were doing the 5150 show. But Warren, if you're watching, brother, we know you're going through some treatment. Brother, get well, get healthy, come back and join us.
Get back on here,
yes. And be part of the British Electric Blues show on a Sunday. We look forward to it. But we had a great show yesterday, Hoss. We had Brad popping in and popping out cross country, trying to involve himself in the chat. I tell you what, Brad, I give you 10 out of 10 for persistence, brother.
I tried. See what I do for the show, Andrew. I tried my best.
Well, you even managed, Rock Professor, he even managed to get a question in.
Just the one.
I think I got two. Questions.
He got two.
Mind you, can I just say, Andrew, mind you, there wasn't a lot of space to get a question in. There was a lot of talking all the way through. It was like, constant. So, and Neil had a lot to say, which was great because that's what we're all about, letting our host talk. So every time I'd go to stick my little voice in there wasn't no gaps.
One of the difficulties on doing these live streams, I'm going to tell you this, and we've had it with Crappy Luxury a couple of times, and I've been on a couple of other shows that are completely unrelated to music. And when you don't see, you can't pick up what a co-host is doing, so you don't know. You like, for example, when the Rock Professor gets a cup of tea and has a swig of his cup of tea, that's when you get a question in. You see, like now, I'm
putting it down now. That's it.
But because we couldn't see you, so it was obviously very difficult to work out. Brad going like, oh, I got a question. Oh, please.
Well, I promise I'll never do that again.
I'll tell you what, Andrew. If you're at work, like me, I am. Do a lot of team meeting. What we use Microsoft Teams, yeah. And one of the features of Microsoft Teams is you can put your hand up. Seriously, you have to press about it, and you put your hand up. So there's a little beside your face. There's a little hand, like little yellow hand. That goes. And they go, Simon. What's your question?
I can assure you now, we will never have anything like that on the British Electric Blues show. You just jump in, just interrupt. Just interrupt.
It's a testament, though. I think we have a good format where we let the guest talk, and Neil was very elaborate with his descriptions, which is great, and the space was there for him, so that was great.
Yeah, a guy with a lot of knowledge, and I like hanging out with people that have passions, and that's one of the great things, isn't it, Rock Professor, that we do with this show. We like hanging out with people that have a passion, and even ordinary people that you come across in your daily life who are passionate about something that you may not have an interest in. I still dig the fact that people have something that motivates them. The fact that we're all together motivated by music probably puts us on the top rung of human existence.
100%. We're always on the top anyway. That's all.
So we like to think anyway.
we got a couple of things that we're going to talk about, guys. We're going to be talking about a great rock and roll album. It's my pick. I've got the introduction, and then we're going to talk a little bit about that. Before we do that, though, the Rock Professor's got some things that he wants to share with us, and then Brad, if you guys weren't aware, when he was traveling cross country yesterday, he was off to a gig. So he's going to fill us in about the gig, and we've got some picks. I must say,
Gig picks.
Brad is a very, very good photographer. I tell you what, bro, the way that you've taken these photos, yeah, you've got another talent, Brad, the talent man.
A man of many talents, an expert of none.
Jack of all trades and master of none. Yes.
Yeah, that's
aren't
me.
we all?
Yeah,
Rock Professor,
Jack
so
of no trades, isn't it?
yeah, shit stirrer.
Oh, that's harsh.
Hey,
Look at that. 6 minutes in, he's already sworn.
The Rock Professor's going to share some things with us, and then I think after that he's going to do a shout out. So if you guys, we've got 15 people watching us, so that's good. So hang about. We'll do a shout out. I'll flick your comments up. But what have you got for us, Rock Professor?
Well, just a couple of things I heard this week. One is numbers, but there's an amusing story. In 1970, roughly 4,000 albums were released in the US. Right. So in 2020, 1.1 million albums were released. 3,000 albums a day. No wonder we can't keep up. for pretty much the same revenue as well. The interesting part is that it's about $12 billion, but it's not 4,000 albums earning $12 billion. It's 1.1 million albums, which is amazing, isn't it? It's an astonishing amount, and proves how difficult it is these days, because everyone does it themselves, how difficult it is to elbow your way into a huge market.
Yeah.
But yeah, so 60,000 new songs uploaded to streaming every day.
Jeez.
60,000.
It's insane.
Yeah. On a lighter note, I was watching a Word in Your Ear, which is a podcast done by two journalists from England, David Hetworth and Mark, and they were talking to a bloke called Mick Brown, who's a journalist on the Telegraph, and he was saying when he was he's a real soul man. This guy Mick Brown, his soul music is his thing. And in the 60s, he went to a concert where the support act was the American soul singer Garnet Mims. I don't know if you've come across him. The minor hit maker in America, Garnet Mims, who he particularly liked. So after Mims' set, he makes a deliberately 17-year-old, deliberately noisy and petulant exit against the headliner, who happened to be some bloke called Jimi Hendrix. Yeah, there's a lot of getting up, rattling of chairs, and kind of getting people to move out of the way.
Jeez.
It's what you do when you're 17, tremendous hubris when you're 17, don't you? It's like, I don't know. Is that Hendrix person? God, what does he play? I thought it was lovely, just lovely little stories. I love the hubris of the teenager. I don't like that, and I'm showing it.
Yeah.
Anyway, so on to the chat. Let's say good morning to John ZD351. Good morning, Ellen. Morning, Ellen. Jazz Thunder 50. Morning, Jim. Up and awake early. Philip Byers. Good morning, Philip. Stephen Fish. Morning, Stephen. Gret Zeppelin. Morning, Gretch. Great name. Arvin, of course. Good morning, Arvin. Hope you're good. Teresa. Maria de Souza. Good morning, Teresa. Hope we're good. We've got who else we got? Quentin James. Quentin, good morning. Hope you're good. In sunny Kentucky. Well, it may be sunny. Hugh Caldwell. Morning, Hugh. How you doing? Hope you're good. Gary Hubbs. There we are. Gary, new name on the block. I don't recognize him. So good morning, Gary. Welcome.
Thanks, Gary.
Good to see you. Yeah, good to see you. I think I've got everybody. He sometimes lurks. There we are. Well, good to say hi, Gary. And welcome. It's good to have you. Good to have you along. Hope you enjoy it. Hopefully I've got everybody. I didn't miss anyone so far. So welcome one, welcome all. Good morning. Hope you're all good. Yeah.
Brad will pick up any of the late stragglers when we do the end shout out. But looking forward to diving into this album. We've spoken about this album a couple of times, so I look forward to it. And as usual, guys, if you agree with our rankings or disagree, anyway, it doesn't matter. Put your ranks in. But before we do that, Brad is going to fill us in with what the heck has Brad been doing.
He's going to talk with his mic off. Even better.
Oh, just turn my mic on. Yes, I did a bit of a gig yesterday at a theatre show in a country town called Sale, which is down on the East Gippsland of Victoria, and it was with the band Rewind 80s. And so I just took a few happy snaps for the show. I just thought it'd be good to set a mood. I mean, it's always good to say we did a gig, this and that, but it's sometimes photographs actually paint a picture, so you get an idea of what the theatre was like. And I like to display my guitars. If you follow me on Instagram, I'm sure you probably know by now that every second post is a post about one of my guitars because I love them so much. So I thought I'd just take
the previous one before. Brad, what's the previous one? Is it a BC?
It's a BC Ridge Mockingbird. It's the ST model, and
the switches.
I've done a few mods to it. It's got a floating Floyd Rose, but I put some John Sir Aldridge pickups in it, just to get a nice tonality. And the reason I did that realistically is I've got the Aldridge pickups in both my stage Les Pauls, so I figure I don't want them to sound too different, the guitars. I want them to all be within ballpark. I mean, they're all got a distinctive quality. We know guitars, no one guitar sounds the same. We know that. But if they're in the ballpark, it's a lot easier for me on stage than having to try different EQing and this and that. So I figure for what I'm doing, it just suits me if most of my guitars are in the ballpark, same type of sound quality and EQing, so I don't have to muck around with the amp much and stuff. The type of show this is, the songs run back to back, so you haven't really got time to even change guitars at times. So you basically need your guitars to be pretty much in the ballpark tonality wise to each other. So that were my two guitars I took yesterday. The left one is my Gibson Les Paul 1960s reissue with the push-pull pots on the volumes to make them single coil. So if I need a Strat tone, puts me in that sort of vicinity. We know a Les Paul never sounds like a Strat anyway, but it can get you in the ballpark. I just thought that was a cool. I saw Joe Bonamassa do something like that, and I thought, well, if Joe can do it, I can do it. So there you go. If Joe wants to put a guitar in a theatre, and this is my basic simple pedal board. I run fairly simple. The far left pedal obviously is the EVH Phase 90. The one beside it is a custom one of a kind TS type pedal, Tube Screamers style pedal. It's got a few different modes on it, but I'm running it like a TS9, if that makes sense. That's just a channel switcher, so that the left one is like clean and dirty, and the right button is just a volume boost for solos. So that's I've just got that as a delay.
Okay.
And it's just like a digital delay that goes through the loop effects. That's a tuner.
Oh, yeah.
Tuner and a slash wah. And if you notice, all my pedals have what we call here Tone Revival stomp tops. They are by Woz. So Woz from Tone Revival Engineering, he sells them, and he sells them in all different colors. I just like to run at symmetry, so they're all clear, so they look the same. But it's a fairly simple rig. 212 box with vintage 30s in the Albrig. That's an Albrig twin speaker box. and the Marshall head there is I've nicknamed Monster, the monster that has done a fair bit of work to. So 90% of my sound is just the guitar and the amp. That's pretty much what you're hearing 90% of the time when I play.
Wow, bro.
Yeah.
No stereo rig then?
No, mate. There's just a nice little simple rig. Some gigs I use my 4x12 cabs, and sometimes I use more. But these theatre shows, you've got to play fairly soft. So, believe it or not, they're big theatres, but they use the PA for volume. They don't want lots of stage volume, if that makes sense. So,
seems to be a trend these days, doesn't it?
Yeah. So I've got a pretty cool little setup, and that was my office last night. That's what I saw. So that's obviously a wedge, fallback wedge, just my microphone, and vids from the show. I'm pretty sure Jazz Thunder 50. I think there'll be some vids popping up at some point. I'll share them obviously once they surface. But that's all I could take because I play most of the gigs, so I can't take videos.
While you're playing,
yeah, it's hard to video yourself while you're playing. Sorry, what was that?
You GoPro. You stick out.
Yeah,
GoPro. You're playing yourself and waving your head around. It's like, oh god.
Yeah. I'm not tech savvy enough to set up a camera and do all that stuff. That stuff, I actually, when I'm playing a gig, I like to focus just on playing, not on all the other stuff. So I'd rather someone else do that. I just saw a few questions. I'll just go back to Quinn James. Is one of those switches open your garage door? Pretty much. Yeah. John ZD 351. That was a gig down in Gippsland in Sale. So that was a theatre show that's been rescheduled about 4 times.
What's your set list, Brad?
Everything from Van Halen, Guns N' Roses, Michael Jackson, Beat It, to Madonna, to Tears and Fears, to you name it, all 80s stuff basically. So yeah. Wow. There's some great material in there, and some crowd pleasers, but ones that we don't like to play. If that makes sense. But
you're in that. I spent a lot of years in that boat, playing songs.
Sometimes you got to do what you got to do, and we don't dislike playing them. It's just some songs you've got to play, even if it's not something you necessarily like. You've got to play it because the crowd love it, and that's what's most important at these shows. So, getting bums off seats is what I call the important part.
Yeah, I know what you mean. I wouldn't be devastated if I never played Brown Eyed Girl again.
No, it was actually a really good gig. The sound quality was great. The gentleman doing the sound, Trevor, he was fantastic, and I had probably one of the best fallback sounds I've ever had vocally last night. So I felt like I sung really well. Just the little things that the 1 or 2 percenters that the crew go to make a massive difference, I think. And that I always think if you're a singer, you've got probably up on stage because if you can't hear yourself, you're not going to sing great. So yeah,
no, that's true. And if they've got it all sorted out, if they don't want you to be very loud on stage, if they sort it out, that's really cool. They come with the venue. Do they come with the venue or the PA?
No, you don't hired obviously our own people that work with us a lot. Okay. So, but the funny thing was the crowd were very receptive, but they were like they're not sure what to do. It's like they haven't seen a gig for so long. It was a bizarre because we had a bit of anxiety sort of going up there because you haven't played for a long time. When you're playing all the time and you gig fit, you just you go out there and play. But when you haven't played since I don't know when the last gig was. I can't think of it. So when it's been that long, you get up and you get the jitters. You get the like you're playing your first gig again. It's like wow. So, but the crowd reception was great. But they're sort of like, oh, what do we do here? Oh, that's right. And they stand up, and it's like they were just a bit reserved at first, but we won them over in the end, which is good. But thanks for showing those, Andrew. That's great.
No problem, bro.
Yeah,
I think we did something similar last year too. Was it the same gig that you did? So always happy to support anything that anybody does. Obviously, that's related to our channel, bro. Anything with the co-hosts and anything with anybody that jumps into our comments. If there's anything that we can do, if we can put you on our community pages, we will. That's the least we can do. Thank you for hanging out with us. Well, shall we get into the show, guys? So the album that we're picking is the 1970 classic live album by the Rolling Stones. We've discussed this album a few times, and I think I even may have had Carl on here when it turned 50, and I think we had a show just talking about it. I don't think we actually went through and ranked the tracks. Incidentally, guys, I did ask him to jump on as a early on when we decided that we were going to do this, to see if he wanted to come on and co-host with us, but he had a couple of other things to do, but sends his best wishes, watches a lot of our shows, and Carl is responsible for me getting a deeper appreciation for an album. And we've discussed this before, Brad, haven't we? You know, we might be familiar with an album for a long, long time, and then we might meet somebody and they might just articulate something, and you just have this fondness for this album, and you go back to it and you just listen to it again, and it just does something to you. And if we can do that, Rock Professor, with our shows on a serious side of things, well, we've done our job as organic music fans. But when I reflect on this album, I'll always have Carl in the back of my mind now, because we spent hours talking about this album, and I'm looking forward to spending an hour and a half, 2 hours hanging out with the Rock Professor and Brad and everyone else talking about it. Couple of key points about this album that hits the nail on the head for me, Rock Professor. This is the generation now where the Screamers had grown up, and Bill Wyman makes a great point about this album. He said all of a sudden in '69, when they went on tour, the crowds were quiet. They were sitting there, they were standing, they were dancing, they were actually listening to them. And the Rolling Stones picked up on that, Brad, really, really early. They were in tune with the audiences. They picked up on that early. And that paved the way for bands that we love, like Led Zeppelin, you know, to go out there and present their music. Also, there's a couple of like cool things about this album that I want to share with you guys too. So back in '66, when the Stones toured promoting Aftermath, their gig set was 10 songs, 30 minutes.
Oh yeah.
And with this album, with the Rolling Stones in control, because they booked the opening acts, so they weren't responsible for dud opening acts like they had been in the past with promoters. They did the promotion themselves. They bought their own PA systems, Brad, which is really, really interesting. It was a point that I didn't sort of become aware of until about 10 years ago. They had the great auditoriums and venues and the concert venues where you could have 10,000, 20,000 people, but the PA system sucked, you know, because they were for sports events. So the Rolling Stones again paved the way for for Led Zeppelin and these other great bands. Well, if you're going to go to these venues, you got to take your own PA system. But they didn't only just stop there. Yeah. They took their mixing board and they took some recording information, and they took Glyn Johns with them to record everything as well, which I think again is really fascinating, because the Stones, Brad, they, you know, we forget this. They were listening to their audiences. They were attuned to the times. They knew that there were young people with burning draft cards, going to protests, experimenting with drugs. They'd grown up. The rock and roll was something that meant something now, as opposed to just a screaming event. So they were locking onto it. And for me, this album encapsulates all that coolness that every band that we love in the 70s jumped off on. Does that make sense?
100%.
Yeah.
100%.
And I guess that this is their second live album, isn't it? So I mean, I guess in a sense they're sort of more up on the. I'm off the top of my head, I can't remember many live albums from the late 60s, particularly. People seem to be just doing studio albums a lot. And clearly, people like Zeppelin, Purple, all of those bands. Nobody had done a live album, at this time. So I think the Stones probably slightly ahead of the game, in trying to head off the bootleggers or whatever.
And they were clever too. They were clever businessmen because, besides bringing Terry Reid, their own opening act guy, they booked B.B. King, Ike and Tina Turner, giants, smart move, that was going to feed into that coolness, that was bubbling there, and then obviously the Stones were going to come in and just blow the roof off. But just smart business, and I think this is the beginning, Rock Professor, of the Stones, Rolling Stones promotions. I don't want to get I don't want to go too deep into it, but the fact that they got financed to sell out these gigs in 1 month because they wanted to do it themselves again was a smart move, very smart.
It's interesting that they actually promoted themselves. That actually, did they their organisation booked the venues and organised it all, rather than
all through Rolling Stones promotions. Yep.
So in effect, they were getting most of the money and then just paying for the auditoriums and whatever else.
Yeah, well, you cut out the middleman, so you keep the money. Which is smart.
100%. Makes more sense to do it that way, and if bands could continue doing it that way, they'd definitely be more successful financially. 100%.
Well, it's the Joe Bonamassa model, isn't it? That's what Joe Bonamassa does. That's what he discovered, is that he could make more money. He could play clubs and he could play small venues, but actually no one would book him into a bigger venue because they didn't make the money. So he said, well, actually, I'm going to do it myself. So he booked himself into a venue, I think in Florida, and I think he sold it kind of half sold out, but because he booked it and hired it and everything, he made more money out of the fact that it had been, even though it was only half sold out, he made more money out of it than he had playing for other promoters. So I think they used that. They're going, all right, we can expand into these places and we can have, we can build towards selling them out, but we're going to start playing in them. We're going to book it ourselves. Yeah.
And I again, one of the great things about this album, obviously, is Taylor's melodyism, and also that muscular punch that he brought to the band, and we can talk about that through some of the songs. But the album, when it dropped in September 1970, went straight to #1 in the UK. Apparently held that position for a couple of weeks. Went to #4 in America. Recorded apparently over 2 shows on the 27th of November, 1 show on the 28th, and 1 show on the 26th in Baltimore. So when you consider that was recorded, November 69, and the album was dropped September 1970. So, pretty good time frame when you consider there was some overdubs. Now, what's interesting, guys, and again, we don't want to dwell on this a little bit. When I heard this album, Brad, it blew me away. I loved this album, and then I heard later on that apparently there were huge issues around it. Some people were saying that it was completely overdubbed. I spoke to Carl, and Carl said that he heard a lot of bootlegs by the Stones from this era, and they sounded really good. So if there were some overdubs, and clearly there are, it hasn't interfered at all, because the bootlegs prove the point that the Stones were sounding pretty hot.
Yeah.
I found a website that has summary of the sources and overdubs on Get Your Yayas Out. So there's a great list of. It's not a huge amount of things. I think it's quite a lot vocally, and then the odd bit here and there, So, or things kind of edited out or whatever. So, yeah. So I think it's probably some. I think it's that era. Took them back and did a bit of work on it. But I don't think there's a huge amount. So for instance, Jumping Jack Flash, the first song has a vocal overdub, probably apparently, but none of the other stuff is overdubbed.
Sorry, bro.
I couldn't tell if there was overdubs. I mean, it doesn't sound to me
pretty live.
Like there's a lot in there. You'd be able to tell if it was really polished, but it sounds like the Stones to me, But
oh yeah, absolutely. I'll get to everyone's comments. I'll throw your comments up later when some of the other co-hosts are talking. Another great thing too that the Stones have done, Get Your Yayas Out. It's named after a Blind Boy Fuller song called Get Your Yayas Out. So again, the Stones can't help themselves. The Rolling Stones have to go back to this Black American blues music, which is the foundation of what this band was and is. Besides some of these other excursions and that dreadful Dirty Work album that they did, they're still inherently, Brad, in my mind, are a blues band, that do great rock and roll.
100%. This is really evident, this record, that they're a blues band.
But it's interesting, isn't it, that there's a sort of transition going on, isn't there? Because they're still doing the rock and roll stuff. They've got a couple of rock and roll, but they're doing, Midnight Rambler, and they're doing the much more kind of rock things as well. So my feeling is there's a bit of a transition going on between the two. Because if you go 2 years forward, if you go to the Brussels affair, a couple of years later, my memory is there's not any rock and roll stuff on there. It's all Stonesy stuff. They've gone into that rock era, and they're now playing a rock show. Whereas here, yes, Stephen Fisher clearly bring out lots of albums I can't remember on the hoof before this. But that would be my feeling, is that this is a transition record where they still got those rock and roll things, but they're moving towards the newer stuff.
And it's a foundation record, obviously, because it paved the way. Like Stevens just said, there were some other great albums by some other British and American acts. It had to start somewhere. And in my opinion, this album is where it starts, and that relationship between the band and the audience is caught up. And it's there for us. So go and check out Give Me Shelter as well. There's some video clips. We don't want to talk about what happened at Altamont, not on the rankings. Maybe when we do a Rolling Stones show, we're hatching a show behind the scenes. So we may talk about Altamont in depth on another show, but. Besides that tragedy, there's some great footage, Brad and Rock Professor, of the Stones in concert, and you can see clearly there's no lip syncing, there's no miming, Brad, there is no 50,000 effects on the floor, Brad. It's just going straight into those ampegs, Brad. It's cranking, bro.
Yeah. Oh, 100%. Yeah. I know the footage you're referring to, Andrew, and I used to watch that all the time. As a young fellow, I used to watch it all the time. I just found it fascinating, and I loved that era of the Stones, that early 70s era, late 60s, early 70s era of the Stones is probably one of my favorite eras.
Yeah, and well, it is for me too, and I just want to share something with you guys, and I want to ask the Stones nuts in the chat this question. So. And we always change our mind here. You can never get a decent answer from any of these co-hosts, but it's okay. We're weak men. When Stones nuts get together, one of the questions that they're inevitably going to ask is it the 69 tour or the 72 tour? Which one do you like? And for a long time for me, guys, it was the 72 tour. But doing research for this album, I got to tell you, that 69 tour, that 1 month in 1969, and when was it, Rock Professor? November?
November. 69. Yeah.
What a time. So I'm gonna, at this stage, I'm gonna say I'm a 69er.
Yeah, I'm a 69er too. I think that's that era for them. Listening to those concert series from there, I loved it. So they're playing. It's so, when we get into the song descriptions, I'll save it for then. But yeah.
Well, clearly you are, of course, wrong, because you obviously didn't do your homework. You didn't do your maths homework properly. You haven't done it. It's 1972. That is the. I've done the math.
Hey, Sonia.
That is the result. I said the Brussels Affair is the greatest Stones lineup. It's in all the books. Sorry, you'll have to go round again. You have to stay behind after school, and we'll do it all again.
We'll come back. But look, it's one of those great things, isn't it? It's one of those great things that Stones fans will always ask, And, obviously you've got the Brian Jones and you've got the Mick Taylor thing going on. I just love the fact that Mick Taylor came in on this album and just took the Rolling Stones to another dimension. So, but again, we can talk about Mick Taylor specifically in the songs. Guys, that's my intro. I'm going to go around and ask my co-hosts specifically when they heard this album. So, and we can just talk a little bit about what it meant and how you discovered it. I discovered this album, I think, again, around that critical age, 13, 14, 15, Brad, where everything just about as far as music is set. That's that pivotal age. And you might remember also, Rock Professor, I've said to you before that I've heard albums and I never got albums. Like, for example, when I heard Exile on Main Street the first time, I did not get that album. I did not get it. It took me years before I understood what that album's about. This album, I got it. And the reason why is because some of the songs were familiar songs because they were radio songs. So that familiarity is I got a funny tongue. Is important. Yeah. It's important. But I got the album. Brad, how did you discover the album, and where were you, and what were you eating, and what color undies did you have on?
I think I had black undies on. I was eating probably pizza and drinking beer, and probably maybe drinking beer slightly underage at 17. I think maybe I can't remember. No, I'm joking.
You weren't drinking a protein shake and
that's it. Just knocking one back, quietly. No, I was around that time when I started sort of learning guitar, and I was listening to the Black Crowes, and I was listening to the Stones a lot, and I'd never really given this album a listen, really, until someone put it on. Again, it was one of my close friends, Luke Foley was his name. His brother Brad used to have a massive Stones collection, and I thought, what's this one? I never really listened to it. I liked the album cover. I thought, that's an interesting album cover. I'll have that, and I realized it was a live record. So live records always capture me. I love listening to a live record.
Yep.
And the reason I like listening to a live record is because, especially with records like in stuff that's recorded in the studio, you're not capturing the band completely just playing and performing. It's polished, it's fixed, and I love that too, don't get me wrong. But at the time I was getting into Song Remains the Same by Led Zeppelin, and I thought, I'd love to hear the Stones live, and obviously had a listen, and I loved it from the minute I started listening to it. And obviously being a blues nut, I did hear them as a blues band, so I thought, this is a good blues record. This is great. So, yeah, it was awesome. Immediate. I enjoyed it immediately. It didn't take a while for me to get into it. I enjoyed it immediately.
Awesome. I
I actually love the version of Sympathy for the Devil on this. Love the feel.
Yeah, I look forward to talking to you guys about that song. Yeah. Look, I agree with you. Good to see that you got it. And it was there was an interrelationship with some of the other stuff that you were listening to, which sort of works its thing, doesn't it? What about you, Rock Professor? Did you go and see them? What were you doing in 1970? You know, you probably bought this album when it came out.
I was only 12. The Stones were much too decadent in 1970. I think I waited till 76 to go and see them. But funny enough, this album kind of passed me by in a funny kind of way. Clearly I've heard it, but I never really. This is the first time I sort of dug into it properly and kind of listened to it properly. I mean, I don't think amongst my contemporaries it wasn't a huge. I don't remember people having it. Clearly Exile on Main Street and Let It Bleed and whatever else. I had all of those records and I heard those records regularly, but not particularly dug into it before now. To be honest, it's just kind of I don't know. I think because then more recent, I've had the Brussels Affair. I bought it. When they released it, so I've got that, and so that's been my sort of late early 70s kind of Stones. Yes, I was age 12 cutting the bread. But I don't know why it's kind of passed me by, but it sort of has, really, in a way. I didn't at the time. It was a bit before I started buying records. So I wouldn't have necessarily bought it, and then Exile on Main Street was out, and I knew people, who liked Exile on Main Street, and that's kind of, I've kind of went back later a bit and bought the records later, the earlier ones, but I've not really investigated this at all. I don't remember people particularly playing it at the time. Interestingly. I don't know. It's one of those things you just, as you say, you either get or you didn't. Well, I literally didn't get it by not getting it.
Yeah. Oh, okay. Well, I certainly look forward to hearing what your ranks are. One interesting little fact before we get into the tracks, again, and I've got to take my hat off to Carl because Carl pointed this fact out to me. Apparently, the Faces used to listen to this album before they would go on stage themselves. It was an album that they would have in the background in their dressing room when they were getting ready to go and gig. So interesting. I couldn't find that anywhere when I was doing my research, but I'm not doubting Carl at all. But if anyone can back that up, I'd be keen if anyone has. When we go through some picks, the idea was that I was going to flick through some picks before we started, but we'll go through and rank a couple of songs. We've got some picks and some guitars that we can talk about, and a couple of references to some books that I've used for gaining the information. There's some good stuff out there on the Stones. The Rock Professor and Brad and I like to talk about reference material. There's some bad stuff out there on some of the bands that we follow, but the Rolling Stones have got some good stuff. Some good serious journalists have managed to pick up and do some good research. And it also helps too that they've spoken to the band members, to get that information too. So that always helps, Rock Professor, when you're talking to the guys that did it.
The people.
Yeah. The men, the boys themselves.
Yeah.
Okay, so the first track, guys. Well, what a great opening. Cutler. If you guys go back on the channel, Sam Cutler, a couple of years ago, we interviewed Sam Cutler. So go and check that out. And if you're watching a replay, I'll put a card up to make it easier for you because, that's just a classic opening line, isn't it? Is everybody ready? Yeah, it's just fantastic. What's really interesting about that track, though, the opening track, is that it had only been out for a year. And the band plays Jumping Jack Flash faster than the record on this live album. And one of the key things too, Brad, that I found out when I was doing some research is that they play this in B as opposed to B flat on the record. Now that extra that tone semitone difference actually has a great effect on the song, and I think that's why I always prefer the live version, because it has that, I think, what the rock professor likes to call that tonal ability to swing, and it comes through really, really well. You've got Bill pedaling just on that bass, and he's just pedaling it so well. He's just playing with the riff, and that the song from the recorded version, instead of shaking your hips, you're stomping your feet, and you have that delicious solo, that lead climb by Taylor during the chorus. It's just remarkable. Guys, it's a great opener. I have to give this a 10 out of 10. We didn't decide he was going to go after me. Rock Professor, are you going to go after me and then Brad?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, that's fine. Yeah.
Make it easier. We'll go around the wheel.
Yeah, go around the world.
What I'm going to pick. What interested me first about this was that I didn't think it was much faster. I was amazed that it was as slow as it was. Remember, I come at this fairly new, and paying attention. I thought to myself, maybe it is a little bit faster than the recorded version, but it's in the same ballpark to me, and I'm quite amazed by that they managed to chill it down to keep it to that speed. So I didn't think it was that much faster. I went and checked against the original about whether I thought it was. I didn't pick up that it was much faster. Actually, I was amazed that it wasn't much faster, because it's like when you get live, it all cranks up by 20 minutes, doesn't it? Or 20% kind of thing.
DVD.
That's so I think it's a great. I think that by not playing it too fast, you keep the kind of insouciant swagger about it. That's its important bit, is that it doesn't go too fast, and you keep it at that speed, and that what gives it a kind of that swagger to it that it needs as a thing. I think if you go too fast, you lose that. It just becomes very straighter and rockier, and so I think it's a really good version, or a great version of it, and and a great opener as well. I mean, clearly, it's we've written an opener for the gig boys. We can relax, crack into it, and with that classic riff and things, and great. I'm always amazed by these things. I don't know why I'm always amazed by things, but they're great. There's a tremendous full sound as well. Fills up your speakers, doesn't it? In a tremendous way. And I think Taylor's getting into it. There's some great lead lines from him on it and things, and the two guitars playing. Interesting, yeah. Still doing that twin guitars thing at the on the end bit, on the end solo, kind of where they do a bit of intertwining, which is interesting. So I don't quite think of them being like that. But 10 out of 10 for me. Never a skip. Really great opening. Did you give it a score, Mr. Walton?
10 out of 10.
Yeah. It's a very energetic version. The intro, the first, I must admit, and something you highlighted there, Andrew, about the key of it being half a semitone higher. The first time I ever heard it, it sort of threw me a little bit, because I was so used to hearing the recorded version of it. So, but once it starts getting along, it's a when you think about it in the context of a CD or as an album at the time, vinyl, it's a great opener. Some great drumming from Charlie, and I'm going to repeat this quite a bit. I think Charlie Watts is, an integral part of the Stones sound. His swing, his feel, and everything. It's quite unique. Mick's singing, he's got a real swagger to his voice. He's singing like himself here, and obviously we've discussed in other songs that he puts on a character at time, like he portrays a character, and I'll talk about that a bit later. But in this song, he's really giving it like he's himself 100%. and I love the way he sings on this. I love the guitars. The tone of the guitars is just really sleazy, really. Oh, I love it. It's juicy. They're really juicy tones. They're really great. The bass is tight, locked in with Charlie, obviously. And I put here, Mick Taylor's guitar playing in the outro was fantastic. And the little bit at the end where they say Mick goes on, you don't want my trousers falling down, do you? So I mean that's the whole thing is got that live feel to it. It's fantastic. Great opening track, and if they opened the gig like that, like if that's how they opened the show, that was fantastic. And I give it a 10 out of 10. Never a skip for me.
Awesome. I just want to do a quick couple of shout outs. We've got Keith in the chat. We'll talk. Yes, bro. I was looking forward to seeing you yesterday to see whether or not you were going to jump on and do a 5150 show with us, but I'll certainly talk to you. Thank you, Keith, for jumping in, and also Renus Pinkle, Johnny Bean. And anyway, look, we're trying to keep up with the chat, but Brad will do a shout out to everybody in the end. I'll do everything that I can to throw your comments up, but please, chat away and throw your scores in there. Look, I think we're on the right page, guys. We're up to Carol, which is the first Chuck Berry song, and it's really interesting because Chuck Berry was one of the opening acts for this tour, and I've got a couple of pics there. Famous pic of Mick and Keith talking. Mick Jagger, that is, talking backstage, and it's just a fantastic pic, and you can see Mick's got this big smile. He can't believe he's talking to, Chuck Berry, obviously. Carol, so, what's really interesting about this song, Brad, is that Taylor lays back on this, giving Keith all the room that he needs to do those rock and roll chops that Keith obviously wants to do. He's been playing these Chuck Berry licks since he was a young boy. It's classic rock and roll, these chops. But what's really interesting when you got your cans on is you can hear these descending lead lines by Taylor. And he just he's not overbearing, just adds that little bit of interest, that little bit of salt and pepper on your steak, Simon, that you like. It's really important. Adds that flavor. I love the song. I'm going to give it an 8 out of 10. Rock Professor.
Andrew, I'm a little bit hungry after your description, Andrew.
Sorry, brother. I know you. I know you love your salt and pepper.
Put a steak on the barbie.
Love me steak. Sorry, Rock Professor. My stomach thinks my throat's cut. That's all.
Is it? What's the matter with you? What? You got dinner's on? Is it? Can you smell it coming wafting in from the other room?
I can't. No, I've got to cook it after the show. But I'm. That's pizza night tonight.
Okay. Not steak. Oh, well.
Sorry, Rock Professor.
Can't have steak every day, can you? It's it's funny, this, isn't it? When you go back to this, I think they do a fantastic. This is a fantastic version of it. I think they really get the kind of the Chuck Berry groove. I love this. Mick with his cheeky trousers stuff going on at the beginning. It's like you don't want my trousers to fall down, do you? It's like a real early 70s stuff. That the other person I'd shout out is Ian Stewart on the piano as an integral part of this, and clearly, they know enough about Chuck Berry to know that, an integral part of that is Johnny Johnson, his piano player. And so, I really like it. I think that it's you can dance to it. They pick the right speed. It's not too fast. I don't know quite how they did this, but not too fast. And I feel my foot tapping in my, snapping my fingers straight off, and it takes me back to kind of, when clearly this is only what, this song's only 12 years old, something like that, 58, somewhere 59, it's a kind of, it's not very old song, and yet it's treated like an old song. If you think about now, something from 12 years ago is 2010, modern, very modern. So I think that, I love it. I agree with you about Mick Taylor playing the counterpoint behind Keith and all of that. That's really cool. Made a note of that. And I think it swings along in the verses. I think it has that very much that dancing. You know, the Stones understand that, you know, some of it's about dancing, you know, playing it at speed, and it has that swing so that you could dance to it. And that's, you know, 9 out of 10 for me. I really liked it. I'm a sucker for that old rock and roll thing. So 9 out of 10 for me. Never a skip.
Awesome.
Brad?
Carol, look, you know, knowing Keith Richards loves Chuck Berry, and
yes, he does.
and I know all the Stones did too. They all love Chuck Berry, so that instantly gives it a high score for me, because how could you not love Chuck Berry? I mean, the song itself is fantastic. Their version of it's great. It's got that real 12-bar blues swagger. There's some great guitar playing, and at times I'm questioning if it's Keith or Taylor. I couldn't work out at some point. So I can work out when you really listen. You can tell Mick's licks. You can tell him the Taylor, the way he plays. But yeah, there's a fantastic version of it. There's a real sleaziness to the way they play it too, which is a classic Stones. For me, you describe the Stones as swagger and sleaze, the way they record their songs and play their songs. I have to say, like I said before, Charlie Watts is such an integral part of the feel of this song too. He just holds it down. The band sounds great. Mick Jagger's, you know, holding his own there as well. So I gave it a 9 out of 10, and it's never a skip for me.
Yeah, I just want to back up. I've ranked these tracks, guys, very seriously, because it's a great album. It's an album that's very, very dear to me. It's one of my favorite albums ever. Even an 8 is a good score. 8 is a good score, you know, because I want to give anything, you know, above that. It's justified, and hopefully I can back up if I have with you guys and everyone in the chat, and obviously people in the chat are giving their scores too.
Excellent. That's really cool.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, guys, so Stray Cat Blues. Wow. So, you know, we finally see Taylor strutting his stuff. Brad, he's squeezing fast, stinging leads out of that Les Paul SG, sorry, during, I think, 6 instrumental breaks during the song. It's just phenomenal. I love the slower, bluesier pace on this album as opposed to the Beggar's Banquet version. And also the power, because it's slower. Mick's vocals just gives it some depth, and his vocals draw you in. Very interesting song. The lyrics are very interesting. Besides that, you know, it caused some controversy at the time and continues to do so with other people. It's a great rock and roll song. I love the fact that the Stones can go and get and do something, even only after an album being out a year or 2 years. They can change it so much, but still contain that familiarity. Remember, I've got a funny tongue, guys.
Familiarity.
I'm going to give this song, Brad, a 10 out of 10, and it's never a skip, and it's probably the best version of Stray Cat Blues. Rock Professor.
Yes, it is. Yes. Well, it's funny, isn't it? It's funny when I've listened to it. You know, the intro to it. When I first start is either "Sweet Home Alabama" or "Your Time Is Gonna Come." I can't work out which it is, but you can sing either one to it. They're just completely on the same thing. You know, it's one of the things I tend to. One of the things I do when I listen to it is I mess about and kind of just play along a bit, you know. And that thing about, I don't know about you, Brad, when you play, and Andrew, when you play, you know, when you play something and you go, oh yeah, that's like that, you know. I don't know if you do that. I do that a lot because my brain is full of rubbish. So I, you know, full of nonsense and these things, which so to me, I like that because that D to C to G riff kind of it's really cool, and it's and then you've got that fuzzy guitar that comes in again. It's got a swing to it. They don't do it too fast, and in fact, I went and checked this. The recorded version is faster than this version, and that must be a first on any live album. It must be a first. Nobody plays it faster in the studio than they do on live, except the Rolling Stones. It's I love the two guitars playing. The intertwined bits, and when it changes from the piano and the guitar to two guitars, that's really cool. And you've got the solo break, which is Mick Taylor, which is playing fantastically. I love Mick Taylor. He's a fine guitar player. And I'm going to give it a 9 out of 10 because cool. even in 1971, you should not be singing "I Can See That You're 13 Years Old." Mick, slightly dubious. Just saying, I've got daughters. Brad.
Look, I love this song. I love the mellow guitar intro, the way the drums come in. Jagger's in fine form in this song as well. This song in particular, you can clearly hear where a band like the Black Crowes draw their influence from. I love the key change for the solo. I love the rhythm guitars behind the solo. I love all the guitars in this solo. That rhythm guitar playing that's under the solo where the key change is, it's just chugs and it's got a bit of sleaze to it. It's thick, juicy tone. And for me, the highlight of this song is definitely the guitars. I gave it a 9 out of 10. It's never a skip, and I think it's the best version of the song out of all the ones I've heard of this song.
Yeah, I agree with you. And Stephen's made an interesting thing that he likes the recorded version. The recorded version's got a great outro solo that Keith plays on the recorded version is fantastic. So if I was ever going to nudge this Brad with the studio version, it will be because of that outro solo that Keith Richards does on the recorded version. So. Again, guys, we're within ballpark, and I'm looking quickly at the comments. So we've got 22 people watching us. So thank you very much for hanging out with us. If you're watching the replay and you haven't subscribed to our channel, please do. All subs to our channel gets an automatic sub back. Love in vain, gentlemen. Okay, so I'm going to ask a question. I think the proper thing is this a rhetorical question? But is this the bigger? You shut up then, because I don't want you to answer it. No, come on, we're just having fun here. Is this the biggest up until then? This moment, is this the biggest moment in Mick Taylor's life? On the video, guys, we see him changing from the SG Brad to that 59 Sunburst, and he grabs the slide. The Let It Be version's got that nice country blues feel, hasn't it? And you can even hear the mandolin. But this version, Rock Professor, it's road worn, it's abused. You can hear that urbanness, that grit that Brad talks about. I'm not going to use that G word. But that sleaze that Brad can hear so much in some of these great rock and roll songs. This has got that for me. But not obvious. It's not obvious when I say that. It's not obvious sleaze, and I'll tell you why. Isn't it interesting though how we can see that the Stones have progressed from the recorded version to this version in less than a year, and their ability to interpret classic blues songs is just remarkable. Brad, I love the arpeggio chords that Keith plays with mixed vocals, and then you've got Taylor's slide, reflecting back on that. You can hear the loss and the anguish of love, and it's completely believable. It's just completely believable. It's simply stellar. It's a must listen for any rock and roll fan, let alone a Stones fan. I have to Brad score this. It's just phenomenal. It's rock and roll magic. Rock Professor.
Yeah, I agree with you completely, man. Mick Taylor solo. I love the way that that when Jagger sings and the train is in the station, and there's a kind of just a little slide bit that Taylor does, just to kind of that are the kind of the train noise that you're looking for just in that. Which I don't know, maybe it was. I really like that sort of thing. That clearly he's listening to what Jagger's doing, and doing a kind of guitar response to it. That to me is really cool. I think that you're right. It's really nice actually to have an acoustic number, isn't it? It's kind of in the middle of it, boldly. Track 4, we're on an acoustic track. I mean, tremendous acoustic guitar, but nevertheless, it's got the basis of it is Keith on his acoustic playing, and I think it's really great. I think the drums and the bass are really great as well. I think they hold it down. Again, they don't go too fast, so they conjure up, as you said, Andrew, a vibe and an atmosphere that that really suit the song, kind of careworn, following her to the station kind of thing. It's a 10 out of 10 and never a skip for me either. Yeah, it's beautiful, and I love the contrast between the previous songs. You've got a couple of 3 electric songs. You know me, I like I understand the programming and the way song, and having a contrast, this great contrast. Yeah, absolutely, 10 out of 10 for me, never a skip.
Awesome.
Yeah, it's a great version of the song. I love the description, Andrew. You said road worn. That was fantastic. Mick sings in character in this song. To me, when I hear him sing this, it's like he's in a movie and he paints a picture in your mind with his vocal delivery. He's the master at that. I don't think many people can do it like he does. And I love the mellow guitar intro, the playing through the song, all the guitars through the song. That laid back drumming from Charlie Watts is just fantastic. It's understated, but understated in a great way. Very dynamic. Some wonderful slide playing. And that's Mick Taylor, I'm assuming, Andrew. That's Taylor, isn't it? So I love his slide. He's such a great player. You can tell it's a Les Paul, in my opinion. It's just got that nice tone to it. It's warm. It's all the stuff that I love. So I'm all over this one. And I love blues and that slow blues feel. It really sets the mood for me. I gave it a 9.5 out of 10, and it's never a skip. Absolutely love the version of the song.
Yeah, what's interesting about Mick Taylor too, guys, is he doesn't play in open E or open D or open A, which a lot of slide players play. And because we are guitar players, we know what that means. It's a little bit easier. You can find the 4 and the 5 chord, when it's tuned. But Mick Taylor plays in in standard tuning, which is even more remarkable. Just a great musician. Thank you, guys. Thank you for that. So what we're going to do is we're going to go through the Midnight Rambler and we're going to throw some picks up. But before I talk about the Midnight Rambler, guys, if there was one song that I didn't get on this album when I first heard it, and one song that I may have skipped, it would have been probably this song. But one of the great things, though, about albums and listening to them over time and sharing those experiences with other people, you get either to continue to skip or you become closer to the song, you understand it. And I certainly did. This song grew on me over the years. And what's interesting, at the time when the Stones played this, it would have been relatively unknown to the audience. But Brad, that mid-song breakdown of the beat, where you get that opportunity of Keith and Mick to trade off with those licks, is just phenomenal. I just think it's fantastic. And then you've got Mick's scat vocals over it. It's just fantastic. and then you can feel the audience, I think, falling in love with the band. I did some research, and apparently, what Mick used to do is he used to take his belt off when he used to sing the song, and he used to wave the belt around, and he would try and whip the audience, and then he would drop his belt, and the crowd would go, ah, yeah, you know, and people, Ethan, you know, the photographer and other people that were hanging around could actually feel the power, and the Stones were looking at each other going, holy cow. You know, they realized that something was happening with the audience that they hadn't had before. I love that. I love the fact that, you know, they were getting into it, these young cats, in New York. Brad, it's the definitive version for me. I love how the song rides out on Taylor's riffing. It's 9 minutes, 9 minutes of pure rock and roll magic. I tried desperately not to Brad score it. I'm not going to Brad score this. I'm going to 10 out of 10 this song, and boy, I've got an itchy finger to Brad score it, but I'm going to keep it 10 out of 10.
Ooh.
Rock Professor.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. I mean, I think it's what interests me about this is that they, and we've talked about this a lot. You doing other albums, you know, particularly like Humble Pie, particularly and stuff, but other albums that go back to then. They don't have a lot of effects. They don't have a lot of, you know, ways of making radically different sounds. So what they have to do is they have to do dynamics, you know, and that, you know, it starts off dun, 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 you know, and then it's got that faster bit, you know, when they pick it up, which is brilliant. I love that transition into the faster bit where the drumming gets faster and they change the drumming. Yeah, that is a dynamics thing completely. You know, it's not a, you know, they don't change the sound, they just change the speed at which they're doing it. And I think that the harmonica bit where Jagger sings through the harmonica, you know, he's playing and he's singing through the harmonica as well. Clearly, I presume that's what he's doing. But again, it's another dynamic thing that happens, a change. You know, it's a change dynamically in what you're doing in the song. Bit of a sound change as well. But you know, there's not, as I say, there's not a lot of 8 million out of 10. That's a huge score, is it? 8 million out of 10. But, so I love the fact that when they take it down, you get the, you know, they stop and all of that. That is about dynamics. That's about, you know, if we're going to do a long song, we have to change it. You know, they slow it down, they take it right down, and it, you know, and Jagger's doing his talking about the midnight, you know, and then they come back in again. They do those kind of jamming riffs that they do in it. They sing over it slow, and then it gradually speeds up, and then they do that speeding up thing at the end, you know, and then they do a guitar solo, and then they're back to sort of the, you know, talking about the Midnight Rambler at the end. You know, it's for me another one of those things where these bands clearly had learned about dynamics. If you want to do a long song, it's not about just doing a long meandering guitar solo. You know, it is about a dynamics of the song, and you don't need to do long meandering guitar solos. A guitar solo occupies a bit of it, but there's lots of other bits going on as well to keep the audience interested, keep them focused and stuff. I think it's it's one of those another ones. It's a 10 out of 10 from me because of that. You know, if you could do a 9-minute song, keep it interested all the way through without really, you know, going to a completely different, you know, I'm now switching on my chorus pedal and blah 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 and having a completely different section. This doesn't do any of that. So you know, I'm massively impressed by those things. You know, the way they use the dynamics. Awesome. So yeah, 10 out of 10 for me. Never skip.
Brad.
Oh, I love the guitar sound in this song. It's fantastic. Love the bluesy feel. Again, the word swagger. I think feel like I'm overusing it with times, but they just did it so well. And mixing's great. You know, the whole band sound extremely tight. The obviously the feels coming from Charlie. The double time section, there's a lot of excitement in that. The harmonica adds great color on top of the gritty guitars. There's some really fun jamming in this song. They take it on a bit of a journey. The breakdown at about 4.5 minutes. I love the guitar tone there. Sounds like tearing wallpaper to me. It's just, I can't describe the sound. It's just sensational. Around the 6.5 minute, the song takes another great deviates and it goes into another gear. There's some great guitar playing there. The overall sounds of the guitars, they're just infectious on this song. Around the 7.5 minute mark, it takes on another direction and winds up, and rocks out to the end. Look, it's a 9.5 out of 10 for me. It's Stone's brilliance, in my opinion, this version of this song. I can understand as a younger person, you might not listen to this song in its entirety and possibly skip it. But if you're listening to it as we are listening to it as a ranking the track and listening to the journey, for me, it's it's the Stones on fire. This is fantastic stuff.
Well, it's a great song to jam to. You put your capo on the 7th fret, you go and get some tabs. It's really easy, dun, 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 and that D chord, and you're going back up, and then you've got to slow down, as you guys have pointed out with your rankings and the tempo change. It's great song to jam along to and learn. How timing when you're a young guy before you go out and discover playing music with other people. It's great for that. None of my co-hosts mentioned what the song's written about, so we'll just, again, the Stones not scared to talk about difficult subjects. The song's about a serial killer. One of the great things, isn't it, how rock and roll can take these difficult, dark, gloomy, sad, tragic events and just make it into a rock and roll classic. A lot of people in the chat are agreeing that it's a great song. So we're on point there, Rock Professor.
Oh, for sure. Yeah.
Paint it black, you devil. Oh gosh.
That's funny, isn't
gosh.
it? Yeah.
Gosh, I loved that when I first heard it. Paint it black, you devil. It's just like, oh my gosh. And then all of a sudden, sympathy for the devil, it's just like, just completely feeds into everything that you have this view of the Rolling Stones, isn't it? This dangerous band, Brad, and certainly after Altamont, that reputation that they had was capped off, wasn't it? So...
Yeah.
Again, just what a great rock and roll story. Look, it's a boogie rock rhythm, isn't it? A little bit different from that Latin feel that we have on the Beggars Banquet version. Again, the Stones are masters at changing these songs, even though they're only a year, 2 years old. It's been on the highway, hasn't it? It's got that road-worn edge to it that I love. And they've truly put this version into the gutter. It's just in the gutter, and it's just going to stay in the gutter. It's grinding along in the gutter. I love it. Keith's intro solo, wow. Taylor's country blues riffs, and then his epic solo. Isn't it great too that you've got Bill Wyman on bass just playing the chord, just the chord, the E. That's all he's doing, just holding it there, because he knows that he's got two lead players going, and we're all guitar players, and we know why it's really important for the rhythm to do that, because if these lead players fall out of sync, it's really important that they get back into that groove again. And there's a song coming up where we can discuss this, where that happens. I'm not going to say a lot about the song because I want to pass it on to my co-hosts. This is the definitive version, guys, of the song for me. The guitar solo by Keith and then knocked off by Mick Taylor. It's just fantastic. I just love it. I have jammed along to this song for years. It's my favourite Rolling Stone song ever. It's my number one Rolling Stone song. It's one of the songs that's going to be played at my funeral. I'm going to Brad score this. It's 100 out of 10. Rock Professor.
Wee, look at that. Well, it is a Stones classic, isn't it? A Stone classic. One of the Stones classic songs in their canon. I don't have much to say about it, really. I mean, I agree with you. I love the Keith Richards solos and then the Mick Taylor solos. They're starting to bring those things into the band, and
and do you know what? They're just playing pentatonic scales with a couple of blue. Nothing flashy, Brad.
No.
Nothing flashy. But boy, sorry to interrupt.
No, it's fine. Bit of Chuck Berry riffs in there as well, kind of thing, which is cool. I like the way that it builds. I think that they've worked out how to do it. Charlie and Bill worked out how to maintain the rhythm without doing that Latin thing, which is really cool. I think that's difficult to do. I know it's difficult to do because I've done it in our band in the past, and getting the drums right is really the key to it. Dun 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 ba da ba da ba da. That's the that's really difficult to do, and they clearly nailed it down, as you say, and and leaving the others to get on with it. I would point out that interestingly there is no fourth verse on this version.
Oh.
You don't notice it, but there isn't one. There's no fourth verse. The last verse they don't. I don't know whether it's cut out or whether it's whether he just didn't sing it.
Probably
Stones did. Yeah, the Stones did that a lot, Simon.
Yeah. No doubt, but yeah, that's what I noticed. Yeah. I mean, again, I didn't notice it, and then I did notice it, kind of thing. Of course, once you notice it, then you notice it. But I didn't really. But 10 out of 10 for me. Never a skip. Stones classic. Absolutely. Fantastic lyrics. Fantastic. Fantastic song of itself. So 10 out of 10. Fantastic start to side 2.
Yeah,
I'm going side 2.
Yeah, great song, and probably one of the most enjoyable versions of the song. I mean, I love the original because I love the feel with the percussion and everything like that, and the guitar really bites through. But on this one, it's almost like it could be another song. We know it as "Sympathy for the Devil," but it sounds like a different song in some ways, and a lot of that has to do with Charlie Watts. He's amazing in this song. He puts a more upbeat feel to the original. Some great bass playing, and Bill and Charlie were so locked in on this song. And I think you highlighted that, Andrew, that Bill Wyman was so tight and just kept the necessary things in there. And that's the mark of an amazing musician. So that is definitely one of the highlights. The other highlight for me in the song is there's some just fantastic guitar work from both players. And you mentioned, Andrew, like the pentatonic scale, but it's not even that. What they're playing. It's the way they play it. It's the way they play the licks. It's the way that there's so much feel in the licks. It's easy to sit there and learn notes, but to play with that feel is almost impossible. And I love this version of the song. I love the breakdown at about 4 minutes 20. There's some really, really nice bluesy guitar playing through that section and through the whole song. Again, the guitar tones in this song are fantastic. I put sensational guitar tones in my notes here. And, I have to give this a 100 out of 10 as well. It's a Brad score. And I'm with you guys on this one. It's probably my favorite version of the song now. Like listening to this week again, I was cranking along listening to this while I was driving back from the gig, and I listened to this song like 3 times, cranked. It's unreal.
I agree with you. And that note that Keith does at the beginning of his solo, that dunk note, where It's just like, oh, yeah, and then he just gets into it. Look, I love it. It's fantastic. Everyone is agreeing with us. Hey, guys, how about I flick up some picks and we flick through them?
Yeah.
What do you
Flick
reckon?
up some pics. Yeah.
Yeah.
Cool.
Okay. All right, hold on. So give me a second. I'll just reduce this. Where are we? We're over here. Where are we? Get rid of that. Where are we? Okay, so this is a cover of a guitar magazine, which has a really, really, really good article on this album that we're talking about. It came out a couple of years ago. If you guys want to pick it up, it's available in digital. If you haven't, Guitar Player over the last 4 or 5 years have some very, very good guitar issues where they talk about specific albums or bands, and the research that goes into a lot of their articles by this magazine are very good. Go and check out Guitar Player. So what I've done, guys, I've picked a couple of picks here. This is the Hyde Park gig where Mick Taylor is at his debut, isn't he? And there he is, there in all his glory with his SG. Look at him.
Is that an SG or is it a Les Paul?
What's a SG, that one?
Yep. Loves it. And there's this is
Flying V. Hey.
And this is Keith playing a Flying V. We never saw him play that much live after this. But yeah, if you guys want to go and check out the Hyde Park gig, it doesn't get a lot of raps by some people, but Stone's nuts love it. Go and check it out. It's really important. Just
that's a kind of auto-tune guitars on it, doesn't it? I seem to remember. Maybe I'm
Oh yeah. And so this is
sorry, Andrew.
Sorry.
Is that Flying V a 50s one? Is it one of the very rare 50s Flying Vs?
Don't know.
No.
Probably. Probably in 1970 it would be, or 69, or 68,
yeah.
69. Yeah. So
Yeah.
this is a famous black and white pic from the gig. They had a guy called Chuck, and I forget his surname, but he was imported into the band to do the backdrop and set up the lighting so that it reflected the moods of the song. Covered Brad the speaker towers with cloth, because speaker towers exposed back then wasn't rock and roll. A couple of years later, it became evidently rock and roll, didn't it? You didn't cover your speaker towers, but that was what they were doing back then. Give me a second. So this is the photo that I said that Mick and Chuck Berry are hanging out backstage. Look at that big smile.
Cool, yeah.
Now this is a photo of Keith's 59 Les Paul. So that's one photo. And
it's a family show, but that guitar gets me a bit happy.
I hear you. And aftermarket Bixby put on there too. But there's a bit of a history with this, and hopefully it's going to come through when we flick through. And there's another pic of it. And that's the headstock. It's got the Grover tuners. Okay, so can you guys read this? So basically, Keith Richards brought this verse, and it's got a bit of a history, because can you guys read that? I'm blind as a bat.
Yeah.
Jimmy Page was photographed using it. Eric Clapton used it, borrowed it at a Cream gig to play at the Windsor Jazz and Blues Festival. And Richards sold it to Mick Taylor before he joined the the Rolling Stones.
Yeah. Wow. There's a lot of DNA on that guitar.
So apparently it's with some guy,
Switzerland.
a musician collector in Switzerland.
Mm. Wow.
So just
The
hold on.
Keith burst.
So this is their acoustic set that they play. It's on the Gimme Shelter DVD. If you guys haven't checked it out, it's fantastic. It's fantastic. Look at Keith, isn't he cool?
He,
Rock and roll cool.
He influenced a lot of people with that look. You know?
Yeah, I tried. I tried desperately to get it, bro. I just tried. And this is Mick Taylor's 59 Guys.
Oh my goodness.
Yes, look at that. Classic.
Again, they get rid of those Clusons and put on Grovers. More tuning stability, Rock Professor.
Yeah.
So they seem to suit the Les Paul better look-wise as well. I don't know why. Maybe it's just because of the way the tuning pegs sit and the sort of the rounded off pegs. They look really nice.
What's really interesting too is that bridge pickup's 10.2. Typically, they're normally about 8.5, 8. So it's a hot bridge pickup.
Mm. There's a lot of which we could probably do a whole show based on ohmage on pickups, but ohmage of pickups doesn't necessarily, from my understanding, and I could be wrong here, but this is what I've learned from some very, very, very good luthiers and pickup winders, doesn't necessarily determine how the pickup's going to sound. It's a fallacy, apparently.
Oh, okay.
It depends on the wire, how many winds. It depends on a lot of different variants. But what I'm saying is that what was it? 10 points.
10.5. Yeah.
It was, yeah. So that in itself it just slightly overwound pickup, and it's still got the tonality of a 59 pickup. You know, that's all.
Yeah.
Tiny bit more volume, maybe. That's it. That's all it'll be. I could be wrong there, guys, but that's yeah. But that would equate for some of that grittier tone too.
Yeah. There's Mick waving his belt around, getting ready to drop it, and have that crowd there, that sea of humanity.
Lash the drums.
Here's a pick, really interesting pick there. So you can see Stu. Ian Stewart there in his tuxedo.
Yep.
There's the photographer, the young photographer, Ethan Russell.
Yeah, cool.
Photographed a lot of stars over the years. He was with the Beatles, wasn't he, when we were talking about the Beatles? Let It Be. He was in there as well, taking photos. But so I've got some pics there of some Ampegs. Now, Jazz Thunder was talking about them. So they wanted to bring their high watts, but they couldn't bring them. So they managed to get hold of Ampegs, and these are bass amps. So Bill was playing through them, and both the guitar players were playing through them, but they were having issues on these prototypes because the guitar players were basically burning out these heads. So they had 4 or 5 spare heads, and they were basically flicking between the heads during the gigs.
Yeah.
And they had at one stage, half a dozen Ampeg techs there just to make sure that the music was pumping out, which blew me away. I had no idea it was that many. I knew there were a couple of guys there, but their job was just to keep those heads going through those 8x10s. And there's another pic, got another pic up. It's another photo. Gosh, all these words in my head. Here's a pic from Altamont. And we'll talk about that when we do Rock and Roll Tragedies. It's a show that we've got planned coming up. But we'll talk about that a little bit more. There's Mick backstage getting ready. In character. Brad mentioned it before. He's in character. Wearing his Aquarius shirt on. Uncle Sam. Got the buttons down the trousers.
Yep.
Looking cool. There's a pic there of the crowd. A couple of years ago, everyone in that audience there was screaming. Now they're just sitting there, standing there, Rock Professor, grinding, grooving, and listening.
Yeah.
Lot of women in the audience, you'll notice.
I'm glad you mentioned that, because if you guys go and see a couple of the live versions, you'll see that the people jumping up on stage being carried away by the security, they're all girls. They're all, jumping up because they all want to grab. But Mick stays in tune, doesn't falter. A few years later, we see Keith Richards whacking guys over the head with his Telecaster. So
that's funny. That's funny. Just doesn't miss a beat either, does he?
No. I don't think he whacked him with the head. He hit his bum, though, didn't he? He said, "Get back."
Did he not hit him over there? I can't remember. Yes, it's funny, though, isn't it?
That's BB King, who opened, one of the opening acts.
Yeah.
Tina Turner. I can Tina Turner review. Again, hot acts in their own right. Opening for the Stones. Clever business. Clever. Get these acts.
Yeah.
But also recognising that, that's where the Stones got their, where they got it from, didn't they? Taking, payback.
Oh, absolutely.
Introducing them to big audiences and stuff.
And there's Keith there. Again, look at these trousers. Who my gosh. Who got their trousers and sewed buttons down them? Did you do that, Brad? Did you ever do that?
Not buttons, conchos.
No. You had proper conchos.
Yeah. I never did that.
So that's a pic there of the ampegs that they were using, bass amps.
Wow.
Yeah.
And
what do you say they were? 810s in each cab.
Yeah, got another pic coming, which shows it a little bit more. That's the back of the album, and all of us at some stage would sit there and fall asleep looking at that pic of Keith playing that Gibson ES355. Wow.
Yeah. Beautiful.
Again, the ampegs. Bill there with his Dan Armstrong bass, the clear plexi bass.
Yeah.
Did Mick play any guitar on this album at all, Andrew? Did he? He does sometimes, doesn't he? Play?
No, I don't think so.
No.
So there's the internal pic there of these ampegs. Now, what's really interesting, I think. Hold on, guys, bear with me. I can't remember. I think. Okay, so this has got some interesting information here. So these ampegs, so they had volume, treble, and bass, but they were 300 watts, Brad. So the closest Marshall had at that stage was 200 watts. So these 300 watt monsters were for a little while they're huge.
Oh, yeah. It's interesting.
So they called them. Sorry.
No, interesting because you're talking about a bass amp, so tonality they're a lot different. Full stop. You know what I mean? So if you've ever plugged a guitar into a bass rig, you'll understand what I mean. So, but they've got some great tones on this record, so they obviously worked with them.
Yeah, I think there was something interesting, though, about these bass amps, though, back then, because the Fender Bassman was a bass amp, which went on to inspire the Bluesbreaker amp, which all these British guys played, the Bluesbreaker amp. So, there was definitely something about these amps at that period of time. I think they're completely different. I'm not a bass player, so I don't know. Maybe we need to get someone on here, or if there's a bass player in the chat. But I think they're fundamentally different amps back then compared to what they are today, Brad.
Yeah. 100%. Yeah, I do believe that amps back in those days were built differently, and like guitar players were using bass rigs as well. Obviously, we're talking about that right now anyway with the Stones. So,
well, I mean, Brad, if you think about it, the Fender Bassman is a bass guitar amp.
Yep.
And yeah, a lot of people use the Fender Bassman as a guitar amp, didn't they? So,
yeah,
I kind of think I'm drawn to the eye-watering £95 2 channel. Fancy carrying
So they're
that
called
around, would you?
no. So they're called SVTs for single vacuum tube amps. If you guys didn't know that, 300 watt heads. Loaded with 14 tubes, 6 large. So no wonder they were overheating. Hey, no wonder.
It's just more, isn't it? It's just more.
Aye?
I know. It's just more, isn't it? It's like 14 tubes. It's like, and more tubes, more watts. Like it.
Awesome.
One feels.
Thank you guys for.
It's like it's a bit of a competition, you know. It's like competitive. What if my Marshall got 200? We ought to have more, 300. Lovely.
No, you're right, Steve. He didn't.
Right,
he didn't pick up the guitar until 74, 75, I think. Keith wouldn't let him.
Keith Campbell says his neighbour in Belmar, New Jersey, had amp pegs like that. He used to plug his Frankie into those pieces and deafen the neighbourhood, having zero clue. Nice one, Keith. Turn it up. Make sure the whole neighbourhood can hear.
So, like a lot of things, guys, this is they're big money if you can get those amps from that period. If you can get them, they are
big money and
coin.
Big weight. Yeah.
Thank you guys for letting me flick through those albums.
That's
so we're
really
up
cool.
to Live With Me. Pure speed, Brad. Pure speed on this. It was Taylor's debut song with the Stones when they recorded Let It Bleed. You got a scorching rhythm going on. It's irresistible. It's a solid performance. I actually prefer the version on Let It Be. Let It Bleed.
Let it bleed.
I actually prefer that performance. Look, it's a solid performance. I'm going to give this an 8 out of 10. It's never a skip. Rock Professor.
No, I think I'd agree with that. I think it's that it is an 8 out of 10 song for sure. You know, I mean, it's a contrast to what's before and what's after, isn't it? It's but certainly one of the lesser songs on here. I think as a song, it was good version of it, but nice solo over it as well from Mick Taylor. But nothing particularly makes it stand out, tremendously. So yes, 8 out of 10 for me. Never a skip, but it's only 3 minutes.
Yeah. Well, yeah. I mean, it's a really cool opening riff. The song, the guitar playing in this song, I love it.
It's quite an un-Stonesy riff, isn't it? In a way.
Yeah, it is. That little riff that they're playing through it is very catchy. I really enjoyed this song, and I think Mick's singing great in it. The BVs are done really well in this song live. They did a great job of that. Nice little lead guitar playing, and I love the tempo, the feel of the song. I gave it an 8 out of 10. It's never a skip for me either.
Yeah.
Awesome. Thank you for. Yeah, I love this T-shirt too. It's a 72 tour T-shirt. I'm glad you mentioned the T-shirt, Keith, because I'm going to share something with you guys. I'm going to be honest. I put my white Rolling Stones T-shirt on with the red thing, and I sat here and I had a look, and a white T-shirt with a grey beard just does not look cool. It just does not look. So the white no, you will never see Andrew wearing white T-shirts. Because we color coordinate around here. Thought I'd share that.
You could always dye the color of your beard.
I said I'd never do that too, my friend. I said
What's not very rock and roll in the sense of like black and dark colors is the rock thing. So at least you can rest assured, Andrew, that you can wear black t-shirts and it doesn't matter about the color of your beard, but it's also more rock. So
awesome, brother, awesome. But I thought I'd share that with you because
I'd like to point
Keith,
out that Mick Jagger wore a white suit at Hyde Park. Just saying.
Yeah, and incidentally, wore that same suit when they did summer, Sweet Summer. That live gig that they did about 5, 6, maybe 10 years ago at Hyde Park.
Did he wear the
wore it
same
again.
suit? Still get into it?
Yes. So the guy's fit, man. Wow.
Yeah.
Anyway, back to work. Lake District Ambient Music's in the chat. G'day, brother. Good to see you. Guys,
cool, yeah.
Before I get on to the next song, I've got to make this quite clear. This is a great album. It's one of the best albums. It's my favourite album, just about my favourite album. Definitely a desert island album. But like I said to you before, some of my rankings might seem a bit harsh. They could be seen as being a bit harsh. I hope that I don't get timeouts for them. But I only wanted to do that, especially on this album, to highlight my high scores, because I think I just wanted to give the high scores for the songs, for the standouts, even though every song on this album is a killer, if you understand what I mean. Little Queenie, it's the second Chuck Berry song that we've got. You got Ian Stewart playing Boogie Woogie. My co-hosts mentioned that on a couple of other songs, but it's a standout for me on this song. It's a good mid-tempo song. It's full of fun, guys. It's obviously a song that Keith loves to play. He's been playing it for a long, long time. Rock Professor and Brad, I have to give this a 7 out of 10, but it's never a skip.
That's yeah. You see, this takes me back to my, this is like a rock and roll thing. So, interestingly, again, it's slower than the original. Interestingly, I went and tell you, sad bloke I am. I'm just going back to check BPMs and that. Never seen Andrew without a hat. It's a sight. It's purple Mohican. Keith is. But I think this is a great song. It's got it's got that swaggering. They do that swagger, that Chuck Berry swagger so well. It's got fantastic.
Absolutely.
Meanwhile, I'm still thinking, which is such a great hook, vocal hook.
Yeah.
You know me, my vocal hooks. Used by Mark Bolan on Get It On and Queen on. Yeah. Meanwhile, I'm still thinking. It's fantastic. I think they do Chuck Berry brilliantly. I think they get the swing of it. You could just, when they get to shows, you've got your duck walking. You're duck walking across the whatever stage you've got. It's got clearly classic Chuck Berry stuff. Love the piano playing. 9 out of 10 from me. Never a skip. Great fun song. Love it. I love that rock and roll.
Good score. I really enjoyed. Yeah, I really enjoy this. I'm a Chuck Berry fan too. So anyone that covers Chuck Berry and the Stones doing Chuck Berry is great for me. If it's not Chuck Berry, I'd rather hear the Stones do it, if that makes sense. So
absolutely, yep.
Yeah, it's a 12-bar blues feel. Very cool. Mick tackles this really well vocally. At 2 minutes 15, we use some double stop guitar, cliche Chuck Berry licks. Very, very strong version of the song. I want to highlight, like I have before, Charlie Watts holding it down with Bill in this song. I think they probably stand out in this song, like just as much as what Mick's vocal does to me. And I want to give it an 8.5 out of 10 for me. It's never a skip. I could have been a 9 or a 10, but I can't rank it a 9 or a 10 with the other rankings I've done. So that's that's the thing, guys. We are ranking them in order of tracks. So whichever one we give 10, we have to rank the other ones slightly under it if they're not at 10. So
Lake District ambient music's going to cruise and come back to us later and watch a rerun. Thank you, brother. But he wants to know, does Brad duck walk?
Duck walking on stage.
Yeah. Yes, Brad. Yes.
I've tried.
Filmic proof of it.
I don't think I pull it off well. Let's just say that. I'm not much with the movements, you know. I can headbang and do all that stuff and rock out, but the duck thing, I think I'll leave that to Michael J. Fox in Back to the Future. He does
thing.
Does a pretty good. He does a pretty good job for a Canadian, doesn't he? Look,
Yeah.
I agree with you too, Hugh. Yeah, the Stones' early rock and roll covers better than anyone. Yeah, I agree with you.
Yeah. They somehow got it, didn't they? In a way that few other bands did. But you know, I think the other thing is that back in that in the early 70s and stuff, most bands you went to see would do rock and roll songs somewhere down the line. You know, some of their encores and some of their stuff, they would be doing a rock and roll songs in there, which is great.
Awesome. The next song, guys, it's fantastic. You know, there's a clip on the video, and these girls are standing on the chairs at Madison Square Garden, and the intro's playing, and these girls are just swinging. Yeah, it's just fantastic. You can see the feet there, and it's just one of these images that's burnt into my mind, Brad, when I hear this song. What's really interesting about this song too for us, I think that we have to remember, is that it's probably at the time it was their most recent hit, from what I can gather, and it was a favourite in the '69 set, rightly so. The shout out to Charlie Watts is just fantastic, isn't it? We all love that. This album's great for a couple of shout outs. You know, Paint It Black, You Devil. The Rock Professor mentioned something about mixed pants falling down, and then is everybody ready? Everybody ready? It's just got some of these great things. And while we're talking about Charlie Watts, we've done a couple of specials on Charlie Watt when he passed away, Charlie Watts, and we want to do a shout out to Charlie Watts. Rest in peace, Charlie Watts. This show's dedicated to Charlie Watts. Very close to the recorded version, guys, to my ear. Brad, you'll be happy to hear that I love the song. It's road worn again. I love the fact that it's still riding in the gutter. From what I can understand, Rock Professor, Keith's not playing this open G. So
I was going to ask you that. That's one of the things I was going to ask you about. Because it didn't sound like it to me.
No. So I spent some time, considerable time, trying to find it, and I've spoken to a couple of other experts about it, and the general consensus is that he's not playing this open G. He's playing this in standard. Yeah. Which is really, really interesting. I love this version of the song, Brad. I'm going to give it a 9 out of 10, and it's never a skip. Rock Professor.
Yeah, I was classic Rolling Stones, isn't it? Honky Tonk Women, absolutely classic Rolling Stones. It's got all the elements. As I say, I was going to ask you about whether, because it didn't sound like their open G tuning to me. Interesting. It sounded like the way I normally play it on, if I'm just playing it on my standard tune guitar. So that's good to know. It's
it just sounds meaty because it's going through those ampegs. That's why. That's 300 watts
sound.
of family show.
Meat.
Family show. Of things.
Did I say that? Did I just say that out loud?
No.
That's disgraceful.
Of things. 300 watts of things.
Need to be in purgatory for that. Sorry, apologies for that. Going down the gutter route. But fantastic version. I think Charlie and Bill, shout out to them, because holding it down. And I think they have so much to do with setting the speed and the tone, and makes those Stones things so they swagger and they swing, and I'm sure that comes from them, especially in a live thing, especially as Charlie's setting it up and coming in. But it's a 9 out of 10 for me, and it's never a skip. Yeah, it's a great version of it. I love the piano in it as well. Ian Stewart playing the piano as well. It's all really cool, and everyone knows honky tonk women. Why wouldn't you? Swagger.
100%.
Brad.
100%. Look, it's a great version of the song. I love that sleazy sort of intro, very understated drumming to support the riff. There's great vocal delivery from Mick. There's some, as we have alluded to pretty much the whole way through, but in this song in particular, there's some very tasty guitar tones and playing, tasty licks all the way through the song. The chorus sounds fantastic the way they do it. The bass is so locked in and tight on this song. Like Bill Wyman's so tight, and we haven't mentioned him enough, I think, and he needs credit. He was sensational at keeping that really tight. Look, I'm not going to repeat everything you gentlemen have said. I'm going to give it a 9 out of 10. It's definitely not a skip, and I still love the original version of it, the recorded version, but this is a fantastic live version of it. I like the delivery of the recorded version, the tempo, the swing on the drums. I love that. But this is like you alluded to, Andrew, it's a road worn version. They've developed the song as they've gone along, which a lot of bands do, and I admire that. That's great.
Interestingly,
Hey,
no third verse. No verse about the New York verse. They don't do that in this, apparently. And they add a miss and added chorus that separated the two verses as well. So it seems like the right length, but even though they missed out a few things.
Yeah, the Stone. Like I said before, the Stones. You go and listen to some of their bootlegs, and they're always changing the verses and the lyrics around, and it's always like, oh, okay. If you're familiar with the radio version, then you go and hear this version. It's completely different. But yeah, good point, Rock Professor. Street Fighting Man, the last track on the album. I'm looking forward to talking to you guys about this because I did some interesting reading in preparation for the show on this. And there was a term that came to my mind, or my attention, in one of the books that I was reading. They described the song as proto-punk fury. And if you listen, and I got it, because if you listen to the way that Keith is singing, everywhere I hear the sound of marching, charging, feed boy. So he's going, Brad said it before, he's in character. So he's going up and down, up, so he's doing that proto-punk thing that came in the late 70s. Again, the Stones breaking new ground before proto-punk was ever a word. I'm going to agree with that. I'm going to agree with the guy who said this, and I should make a note of who I thought I did. Anyway, I'll come back to that. Mixed vocals, Brad, on this. It's just wow. It's a thunderous closing track to a great album. We know the politics behind this album. We've discussed this album before. It was a song that the Rolling Stones sang and gave to people and said, look, take it and do with it what you want, but we aren't going to attach it. We ain't attaching it to anything. We're not attaching it to any revolutionary movement. It's just our commentary. I love that. I love the fact that they were just saying, here is a song, do with it what you want. Check out the lyrics. I go and read the lyrics. It's fantastic. These British boys were close to the action, and they weren't much older, were they, than their audience. So they were singing about things that affected the world, that was going on, that was happening. Where's that rock and roll rebellion spirit? Where is it now? No one's doing that stuff anymore. It's gone. It's dead. It's buried. We're subsumed by the bourgeoisie now. They're telling us how to think and what to say. But once upon a time, rock and roll didn't give a shit about what the bourgeoisie said. And, the Rolling Stones were the highlight and the epitome of that. I love this song, love this album. I have to Brad score this song, Rock Professor. Love it. It's got rock and roll all over it.
It has, and clearly a classic, an absolute bona fide classic Rolling Stones song, isn't it? Right up there as being and we know because we've discussed it before that kind of, the backdrop to it being the riots in London, the anti-war riots in '68 in London and stuff, and it's a very political song from the Stones, observational of the time.
Paris.
Vietnam,
Paris.
still going on.
The
Sorry?
Paris riots. Paris riots,
Paris.
68.
Yeah, but also the Hyde Park one. Also there's ones in London as well. But anyway, the '68 anti-war rally at London's US Embassy.
Oh, yeah. Where they went and had a look. Yeah. Sorry.
Yeah. No, it's all right. Well, they're all mixed in. Paris, Vietnam, London, all those anti-Vietnam riots and protests and all of that tied up with it. So it's an absolute. I think that they play it really well. They don't go too fast. I know I keep saying it, but I think they're really important to say. Any budding bands that ever go and listen to it, because it's a lesson in not going too fast. You don't have to go at 100 miles an hour because you're live. Tempted though we are. Great guitar solos, great sound. And I think again that dynamics where the drums get more insistent towards the end is really cool. 10 out of 10 for me. Never a skip. An absolute Stones classic. Brad.
Yeah, I've always loved this song anyway, but this is a really cool version of it. I love the juicy guitar tone. The melody in this song has always, it's infectious. You can't not sing along, even if you don't know the words. You kind of start just, it's because the melody, you can't sort of not get caught into that. The choruses, they get you singing along. And they do it really, really well in this version. Some fantastic guitar playing. And the sounds, the playing and the sounds are just so good on this record. And on this song in particular, very cool guitar solo. In fact, the lead guitar playing is perfect for the song. And Charlie, again, shines for me in this. I'm going to give it a 10 out of 10. It's never a skip, and it's a Stones classic. If you don't like this song, then you probably need to get your pulse checked. There's something wrong.
I agree with you. Thank you, Texas. Thank you for jumping in, and thank you for the kind words.
Good to see you, Tim.
Yeah.
And
a great way to end the album too. Great way to end the album.
No, absolutely. Yeah. Fantastic. Yeah.
Look, I agree with you. This is a copy that I've had since I was 18 years old. It's road worn. I don't play it anymore. I'm going to buy another copy because I'm scared, but it's an album that's dear to me. Probably one I'll get buried with. I love the album. I think it's fantastic. It's one of the great quotes by Lester Bangs said it's the best or the greatest live rock and roll album ever. And he knew something about rock and roll. This was a guy that was writing stuff independently, wasn't he? Before the hacks took it over and the money men came in and jangled their coins and they sold themselves to the money guys. So, Lester knew what he was talking about. The beginning, isn't it, Simon? 1970, the beginning of the end of rock and roll as a movement, if you understand what I mean, because it continues, doesn't it? 71, 72, 73, it continues for a while, but it's definitely the divot in the ground.
No, for sure. Yeah.
100%. Great album, and great pick, Andrew. Great pick.
Yeah, it is a great pick. Great album. Really, really pleased to be reacquainted it in a more serious manner. You know what something like you hear them in passing, but you don't consider them in the same way. So, really pleased to be able to acquaint myself with it properly. So fantastic for that. Yeah,
it's a great driving record too.
It is. Yes, it's true. Yes, I've been driving around, listening to it in the car as well. Yeah.
Isn't it
The
funny
reason why we can't. Oh, sorry, bro. I just Texas wants to know why don't we play portions of the song, because if we do that, some albums we would do that to could bar us, block us,
Blockers.
block out. Yeah. So we did that, didn't we, Brad and Simon? We did that a couple of times, and some record companies will take copyrights. So when we get monetized, we'll take any money that the channel generates. But more than that, though, they'll block. So if we spent 2 hours here talking about this and played it and couldn't play the video or have it on our channel, what's the point?
Yeah.
It's disappointing, but that's where it's imperative that everyone in the chat knows the album or has a good listen to it on their own in their own time. Like, do your homework and join us for your rankings. We actually don't want you to copy our rankings. We want you guys to give us your true rankings, because everyone seems to copy us. But we haven't got a problem with people saying, no, that's a 2, it sucks or whatever. So
Yeah.
Cool.
It's been a great couple of hours, guys. Whose pick is it for next week?
Is it yours, Bron? I can't tell.
I think it is mine. I'll have to go back.
Because we had Simon Hoss last week in lieu of you, is it? And the previous week I'd done Status Quo. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
I've got a couple in mind, so I'll sort it out with the boys and with these fine gents, and we'll announce it on our Instagrams and our stories.
On the socials.
So you guys, if you want to find out what those albums are, check out Brad Cook Music on Instagram and or Simon Williams 33. And if you subscribe to the channel here, later on when these guys have broken that hot album, we'll do a community tab here on our page here talking about it. So we look forward to that. Love doing the Sunday show. Love it. You know what I love doing why I love doing the Sunday show? Not only do I get to spend 2.5 hours with Brad and the Rock Professor and everybody else in the chat, but we just get to talk about some great albums. It's great.
Yeah.
And it's great to, because the variety's the spice of life. So it's great to be able to talk about different bands all the time. It's fantastic.
Yeah.
Love it.
It's great fun. I wouldn't get up at 6:30 if I didn't love it.
We love you. We love you that you do it for us. Thank you, brother.
Yeah, thank you.
Only another 6 weeks, and then the clocks go forward.
Hey guys,
you were going to say something, Brad. Sorry.
Yes, good opportunity to go through and say hello to everyone in the chat and wish them all good luck and farewell for the week, things like that. So we've got Nelson. Thank you for joining us, Nelson. We've got Hugh. Thank you, Hugh. Some rat bag called Simon Williams. We're going to time him out next week. Keith Campbell. Yes, I had a great birthday. It was very special. I had my partner, girlfriend, look after me and spoil me. She called it my festival, not my birthday, which is fantastic. So that was lovely. Texas, Jackdaw. Great to see you here. Thanks again for joining us. Gary Hubbs. So we've got Lake District Ambient Music. Thank you for joining us. We have Stephen Fish. Thank you for joining us. We've got Teresa still in the chat. Thank you again. We've got Sonia. Thank you, Sonia. We've got Jazz Thunder. Thank you very much. We've got Ellen, my mother. Thank you very much for joining us. We have got... you guys have been going crazy in the chat. I can't sort of keep up. Again, another rat bag, 5150 show. So, he might get time out. So we've got Helene O'Hara. Thank you, Helene. We have got Johnny Bean. Thank you for joining us. Johnny is probably not here, but thank you for joining us when you did. We have got Renus Pinkle, whatever you want to call yourself. Thank you for joining us. I'm saying that's a take on something that's not so family orientated. So
careful. Careful with that spoonerism.
Yep. So yeah, thank you for joining us, and for whatever short time you joined us, that's lovely. Thank you for doing that, Luca. Thank you, Luca. Luca's a friend of the channel, and thank you so much for joining us. I'm just going through to the very top. We've got Crappy Luxury. Thank you so much, Crappy. And we have it's good to see you, Luca, in the chat. We've got Kenneth. It's my father, Ken Cook, in the chat there. So we've seen the Stones a few times together. So he's a big Stones nut. We have got. I think I've covered everyone off here, guys. If I've actually missed you, thank you for joining us. We really appreciate you jumping in with us and joining us. John ZD351, how could I forget you, brother? He's always there with his cheeky comments, and he helps the channel from time to time. So thank you very much. And another little shout out to Warren. Get well, brother. Thank you.
Awesome. That's a good shout out, bro.
Yeah,
I appreciate it. Just want to
Tremendous.
share one little thing before we wind up, guys. Yesterday on the 5150 show, we had someone in the chat offering a couple of interesting comments. And like we've done before in the past here, we're pretty lucky. Everyone that joins us on our live show, we've got a couple of mods that look after it, and we're all mods here too. But we had a couple of cheeky comments come through, and we always warn that person, because sometimes people don't realize actually there's an etiquette. There should be a way that you should be interacting with people. We're not telling you how to think. We're not telling you what political parties you should be voting for or anything like that. All we ask is that if you're going to hang out and join us, be cool in the chat. That's all you got to do. If you can't be cool, bugger off somewhere else, because
we'll ban you.
we'll ban you, and if we don't ban you, the mods will ban you. So just I just have to shout that out because we're all cool.
We're a friendly channel here. We're a family channel, and we want to keep it that way. So we've got no enemies. We're friends with everyone who wants to be friends with us.
Yeah.
If you don't like it, go somewhere else. It's easy.
Yep. Definitely.
We're out of here.
Yeah, we're out of here. Thank you so much.
Take care, all. See you next week for another classic album.
You know what I'm gonna do? I'm gonna be a rat bag. You guys saw something when Brad had his picks. You saw a guitar, a Mockingbird. And he was talking about this Mockingbird. I'm going to play a video of Brad playing his Mockingbird. Some of you have seen this clip. If you haven't seen it, I never get tired of seeing it. This is going to be the show outro. So here we go.
We never get tired of Brad playing his.
Thanks, Andrew.
His
See you
BC
later.
Rich. Take care, all.